with that being said, Jason, do you want to introduce yourself as well as Bill and Sierra, and then we can start to go from there.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Jason Marsh. It's fun to see so many familiar names and names on our list here. We have carefully created what we call a Flow tribe, and you are now members of the Flow tribe, whether you like it or not. For a while, we've been dancing out in the fields, kind of being crazy by ourselves. And the last year, the business has really taken off, and it's been really exciting to have this wonderful tribe dancing with us and creating really great stuff. So we're really excited to have you here and to see what you want to create with what we've built. So I'm Jason Marsh. We did start the company 5 years ago, and like I say, the last year has been really where it's really successful for us, which we're very proud about. And we're really excited to show you the new Flow editor. We've gotten to a state where we feel it's truly self-serve, and we want your guys' feedback to help us keep refining that. I've been in enterprise software for 30 years. I'm a technical founder, and you'll hear a little bit more about some of the vision-y stuff, but let me pass it off to back to you, Michael.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Michael DiBenigno. I'm the head of business here at Flow, and one of the co-founders. And yeah, I like to say I'm a recovering management consultant. So prior to this was at Deloitte Consulting, and I like to say making up for all the presentations I've given in my life. And really saw Flow as this next iteration of how we more effectively communicate with data. Also was at MIT for MBA, and you guys might recognize me from social media. So I do, or I'm the data guy on TikTok, and have been publishing a lot of AR videos using our tech for quite a while here. So with that, I'll pass it over to Sierra.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sierra. I am a Flow designer here. I've been working at Flow for about 4 months now. So I'm a data scientist, storyteller, and designer. As a startup company, we all tend to wear many hats. And so I'm very proud to be working with Flow and to have you all here.
And I'm Bill Morton. Nice to see a lot of you who I've met before. And those who I haven't met before, welcome to this session. So I head up the services operations at Flow. So anything having to do with implementation, education, training, support, those are in my area. And I also head up partnerships here. And I notice there are several of our partners on the call too. So, and today I'm manning the provisioning desk here. So as people register, I'm trying to keep up with them. And I think I'm 3 people behind right now. 3 people have registered in the last 2 minutes. So I'm going to go on stop video mode and just take care of those registrations.
And I'll also mention the amazing development team we have here at Flow, folks all around the world. Alexei, Vitali, Tavares, Timofey, Anton have been doing some amazing work these last months. And so I'm just going to thank them for their amazing work on getting this release out.
Perfect. So yeah, with that, we're gonna after this beginning intro where we'll all be together, we will break up into 2 separate groups. One group that will be for any new Flow users, or for the new Flow users, and then we have another one that's for existing Flow users. That will be a little more advanced and a little bit more about what are the changes that have happened from our enterprise edition. So before we get going, any questions or anyone want to say hello or before we start diving in? Okay, there we go. I like the text chat, there we go. All right, so Jason, if you want to kick things off for us.
Sure, so I'm actually using a Flow app to show you Flow over my shoulder here. And what Flow is about is telling data stories. So it's particularly important to have a new tool about data communication. There are definitely use cases out there for data analysis, and we appreciate those. They're beautiful, but data storytelling is its own use case. How do you get the right information into the mind of your audience at the right time? And sometimes I call it the last mile problem. Some of the older folks on the call will remember that we used to worry a lot about how the internet was going to get that last mile. How are you going to get fiber into each and every home? And with all the data that we are consuming all of the time, I like to call it, this is the last mile data problem, where how do you get the right information into the minds of your users, of your audience, at that important moment where they're making those decisions. So in an executive meetings, broadly across the internet, but there is a moment where we can inspire people, use all the brain science we have put into this tool to help you tell that story compellingly. And we find it actually a very different use case than just straight data analysis. So to describe that, I'm just going to switch over and use a flow to talk about that. Load this up here, because this is kind of a core point on who we are different from, Tableau and Power BI and all of those kinds of folks. And so what are we actually trying to solve with Flow? We're trying to solve the problems with engagement. Are people even paying attention? Understanding how well are they building this great mental model of the complexity of what you're trying to communicate. We call it seeing the forest and the trees, see the big picture and the details. Turns out that we could go on for a long time about the brain science behind this, but your brain is excited and feels good when it builds that, uses both sides of the brain to build that detailed view and the big picture view. And then interaction. How can we all interact with the flow, interact with our content instead of just sitting and watching it go by? And that is specifically, you're going to get a lot of example of that. And just to make it clear that, these data-driven decisions seem to me like a way to solve humanity's biggest problems. We've got problems globally, in our own businesses, in our own lives. How do we help people understand better and make better decisions? And then we also see a lot of people using us for sales use cases. So just to reiterate the idea that Tableau is wonderful, there's a lot of amazing things you can do. It's really about the analysis use case. Yes, you can build dashboards, but a lot of dashboards get used by experts instead of getting used by your actual end audience. And yeah, you can use PowerPoint, you can copy and paste Tableau screens or dashboard screens into PowerPoint. But when you do that, you lose the power of the data. And that is, that you lose the interaction, you lose the interactivity, you lose the ability for people to explore it by yourself. And we've all just sat through, we know what PowerPoint feels like. Our brains just don't like it. It's exhausting to have things appear and disappear. And instead, Flow gives you a way to move your data through state to state to state. I'm going to stop there and pass it back to Michael. Hopefully that gives you a quick overview on why we exist and how we've brought a little bit of brain science into making sure that the tool does solve some of those problems.
All right, thanks, Jason. All right, so I'm going to jump straight in with everybody here. So what we're going to do here is we are actually going to start a meeting. And so on my screen here is a QR code. I'm also going to place this in the chat window in case you watch it on your computer, but I would encourage everyone to use their phone so we can actually get up and walk around the room in mobile AR mode. Now, in order to do that, just open the camera on your phone and then point that to this QR code. On iOS, it will open Safari by default. And then once you hit that AR button in the top right-hand corner, it will then ask you to open up WebXR Viewer. And that's how you're going to actually open up the iOS app. On Android, you can just open Chrome and that works perfectly fine. And then when you hit the AR button again, it will drop you into AR mode. And so you're going to want to find a little bit of a space here as we walk through and talk through the data. And if anyone wants to screen record or anything like that, feel free. This is actually how we record those AR videos that you see on TikTok. It's basically a multi-user meeting where we go into AR together and dive in. And so I will pause here for a quick moment while people are getting connected and for any issues. If you do have any specific issues, please ping Sierra, Jason, or Bill directly. I'm probably not going to see it. I probably won't see it, but yeah, feel free to speak up if you have issues or need registration information, things like that. All right, so I see a pretty big party going on in here, so I think let's go ahead and get going. So, what do we do with flow, right? What is a data story? And to tell this, let's actually start with something very basic. Let's look at life expectancy. And so we're going to look at life expectancy for different countries within Asia, in Europe, Oceania, which is just Australia, the Americas, and Africa. And so this is actually meaningless, but is a little bit more artistic. And so especially if you're walking around your room and seeing this Christmas tree full of countries, I think is quite fun to sort of feel that level of engagement. But ultimately what we're doing is we're going to be looking at these countries. So we're going to be looking at sort of a selection of different countries here and looking at life expectancy and how that's changed over time. And so to just take a very high level view, here what we're looking at is life expectancy for all of these different countries stacked by country type. You can see here in 2018, where the distribution is exactly. And if I go to the next step here, what we'll look at is how this has changed over time. And so we can see, pretty dramatically from 1901 to 2018, a pretty dramatic increase in life expectancy. And so this is just plotting it linearly. And next, if we look at the actual averages, and I apologize here, let me actually select average. So it highlights for everyone. No, it's not highlighting. Apologies. Should be highlighting, but anyways, so this is looking at all of the countries over time and how life expectancy has changed. And so this is sort of that big picture view of how life expectancy has changed over time, and that this in some ways is humanity's greatest success, that we live longer, our children are more likely to survive, but then also within here is some of humanity's biggest failures. And we can see that with like the Rwandan genocide down here and some others. And so the last view here is going to be setting this so that the average increase in life expectancy is now the dominant domain. And so this is any difference or increase or decrease from that average. And so this allows us to a little bit more easily compare how things have changed relatively. And I think the one that really stands out here is the Rwandan genocide in 1994. So as you guys are all walking around and interacting with this and pulling up some additional information, I'll pause here to address any questions or thoughts, as we've gone through this. And apologies for the small technical issue. I thought that was resolved. Okay. It's actually really fun seeing all these cell phones everywhere. And let me go back to one step. Okay. So apologies. This was actually what I was trying to show on a previous step here. So this is the life expectancy for the different regions. And so you can see how Japan is leading the way here at the life expectancy of almost 85. And just, how different these are, right? 85 in Japan, but meanwhile, down in Afghanistan, the life expectancy is around 58. And so there's multiple different dimensions and attributes that we can start to look across. But hopefully what you're seeing is that as we go step to step, we're really transforming the data into different perspectives, but the data is never leaving. We're always adding on to the story, always adding one additional dimension. And so here is just like that average, just how have things changed on average for everyone. And then we can get into more specifics on the countries themselves. And so, that this big decrease here that exists pretty much everywhere. This was the 1918 Spanish flu, where pretty much across the globe, we see a huge decline in life expectancy. And if I go to the next step, then we draw everything in and where you can start to explore and click through this information. So I'm going to stop there, and then we can actually dive in and have you guys start to build these. So I'll do a quick demo of how to build, and then we'll quickly jump into our different breakout sessions. But before I do that, any questions, thoughts, commentary? I know there's a lot of people on, so don't feel embarrassed.
Yeah, so Michael, there's a question on how they can record this when they're watching it through their phones. I didn't know
Oh,
if you
sure.
wanted to address that.
Yeah, the question. So in order to do it on your phone, you basically need to do a screen recording. So that's built into the iPhone. Essentially, if you look online, you'll be able to find things like how to do a screen recording. And then for Android phones, there's apps you can download to do just that. So that's the means by which we record our phones, at least for the time being. Any other questions or thoughts? See some people walking around. Hopefully this is a fun part of your day to actually get up and move around the content. It's always a pleasure to see people actually moving in the space. I think it's wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this room. Jason, Bill, Sierra, anything you'd like to add before we jump into the actual lesson material?
Nothing here.
Not for me. Everybody has been provisioned who registered, by the way. So if you have any problems, just message me.
Awesome. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting. So I'm going to kick everyone out here, and that's going to force you all to look back at me and my screen. So I am going to now actually go through the process of how we actually build these flows. And to do that, let's actually build one together. And so I'll go pretty quickly through here. And this way we have something for people to reference later. And then when we go into the breakout rooms, we can dive deeper and recognizing that I'm going pretty fast through this. So this first step is to create a flow. I click the create flow button, and right away we see that there's a swarm that's been created. And I essentially need to add the data. Now for this, we're going to select from our library, and we've added in the sport training life expectancy data. And so right away, when I click on that data, you see that the chart type is random. And so every dot is a row of the data set. Every dot is a thing. And we can start to transform that data through different perspectives and different attributes and different highlighting to do different things. And so from here, I'm going to add a step, which is the same as like adding a keyframe in an animation or a slide into a PowerPoint deck. And then I'm going to add a color scheme in here. So the color scheme I'm going to use is based on the continent. And I'm actually going to use this new neon color because it's one of my favorites. And, so from this, let's go ahead and start to order this in a little bit more logical of a manner. So I'm going to select scatter plot, and then on the width axis, let's go ahead and put the difference, the years. On the height axis, I'll put life expectancy, and then on the depth axis, I'll select the different countries. So right away, we're starting to see this all take shape, and this is what we saw before. And then from here, we can start to do different things. So one thing we can do is actually add labels into this chart, where we can look at the country and look at the last in the category, so that we're able to place a label at the very end of each of these rows. We can also have it in the beginning or somewhere in the middle. And then from here, let's also go back to the swarm and add new connections, which is a way we connect these dots together in a logical manner in order to actually, create these lines. And there's more complex things we can get into. But one thing that I think is really going to be interesting for everyone that has been part of Flow already is some of these new interactions. So if I click on interactions, one thing we've added is the ability to highlight information. So if I click on highlight enabled country, as I select the country, it will highlight. And this is very helpful in the multi-user meetings where you can point and direct people's attention to things. There's other things you can do. So you can actually filter this down so that when you select a dot and double click, it would filter. And then we could also drag over an axis to select multiple. So we can go into more of those. And the last thing I'm going to do here is add some on select text. So this is how you're able to pull up some additional information while we're having the meeting. And as I select these, you'll see that I'm adding basically attributes into this 3D text column. And that within here, there's other attributes to then format the data itself so that I can say how precise I'd like it. I can also add dollar signs and things like that into it. So I'm not going to go too far on this element of it, but click OK. And so this way, when I click a dot, now we see that data pop up. So that's adding a pop-up. Now, let me go ahead and add another step here. And so on this step, let's go ahead and start to change that vertical attribute. So that instead of looking at just life expectancy, we can look at the difference from average. And so when we look at the difference from average, this is that last graph we saw previously, where we can see the net change from average, which is right here. And so this is sort of one last view. Now, there's obviously way more things we could go into and different views to make, but just to keep it really simple for new people, I feel like this is something to start with, and then we can sort of start to branch off from there and go into more advanced things in our breakout sessions. Jason, was there more that you'd like me to add to this, or was there any questions that came up as I've been going through this so far today?
To me, it's really hard to view this without talking about the story, right? In the early part of the 19th century or the 20th century, you see this huge increase across the world of life expectancy. And then some of these countries, I believe it's in Africa, you see a drop in the change of life expectancy. They did not gain some of the gains with the rest of the countries. Look at that dip in South Africa and Zimbabwe and Somalia. That slow curve, that actually is AIDS. And Michael's just selected Rwanda in 1994, which was the genocide. All of these are stories that you can tell and isolate in a variety of interesting ways, which we will talk about as we get deeper into this. But yes, it's pretty neat how quickly you can start to see so many different stories without having to go through dozens of slides. On a first glance, it may look complex, and that's why the highlighting and filtering starts to become so important.
So, this is the earliest training we've, started. So recognizing there will be bugs you guys encounter. And so part of the whole purpose of this private beta is to gather feedback from you, get you more involved, and we are here for you. So please do reach out if you have any questions, issues. That's exactly what we're here for. And so that feedback is super critical as we move forward and really, try to make this all pieced together. So with that, I'm going to stop spotlighting myself. And we can go ahead and create these two breakout rooms. So this would be.
I'm just going to answer Martin's question for everyone. She or he was asking if we can see the video from your phone when you are in AR. And he says that, and to let him know that no, the browser is a very secure system where when it's doing the AR mode, obviously we don't know anything about that except for the motion of your phone. And that motion is what we use to show your avatar to everyone else. But no, we do not see it, and there's no way we could. Browsers are very secure that way.
So I just sent an invite to the breakout room. So there's two breakout rooms, one for experienced users and one for new users. And so if I can encourage everyone to essentially join based on your level of comforts, and I'll wait here for just a little bit and then join the new users. Jason will be hosting all of the experienced users. So if I can ask people to basically jump into their respective breakout room, we'll go from there. And then if anyone's having technical issues or things like that, do feel free to stay on my side.